Are you ready?
Hello, and welcome to the Whole House Podcast, where we promise to bring you home, health, and family all in one place. We're a blog team trying our hand at podcasting, and we like to compare our different purposes and giftings and strengths to the rooms in a house. Together, we make up the whole house. So grab a cup of coffee and join our overly caffeinated team here for the Whole House Podcast.
Hi, this is Amerey and Kathleen, and Carly isn't with us today. But we're still gonna power through and do our podcast. And today, our podcast, we're gonna talk about mothering when there are obstacles. And I'm gonna let Kathleen explain that a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and go on our tangents.
Okay, yeah, we love those tangents. So when you choose to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's your God-sized dream, there are lots of obstacles in the way of that dream. And I'm not so much going to focus on the financial. I'm going to focus on the obstacles while you're in the home with the children. Because for some reason, we often think that if there are lots of obstacles in our way, then that must not be God telling us to do that. We start thinking, okay, I must have not heard correctly. Maybe I shouldn't be staying home and mothering my children because it's difficult and there are tantrums and there's food on the floor and dirty diapers and I'm always interrupted and I can't finish anything. And we can start to view those obstacles as a sign that maybe we're not doing a great job, or maybe this isn't really our God-sized dream. Maybe we should be doing something else, but that's just not true, because in every walk of life there are obstacles. No matter what you choose to do with your life, if you choose the career path, you're obviously going to have frustrating days and you're going to have obstacles. And I'll give an example from the corporate world in a little bit, but I'm going to let Amerey put in her 2 cents before I just talk the whole time.
Yes, well, my first thing would say that your biggest obstacle to overcome with convincing, like with being a stay-at-home mom, is going to be looking around and watching all the other moms that aren't a stay-at-home mom and wondering how you do not have the same time that one of our phones are ringing. It's your phone. It's ringing on the... Yeah, just decline it. There we go. Okay, what a fun interruption. Looking around at the other moms who are not being a stay-at-home mom and watching them and getting frustrated that seems like they have more time than you do. But I want to remind you that in Titus, that women are called, in Titus 2, that women are called to be keepers and makers of the home. And so that means that biblically, you should be being a stay-at-home mom. You are called to be home with your children. You are called to be home, loving your children, loving your husband, and that I don't just mean like giving kisses and stuff. I mean keeping your home, making it a comfortable place for everybody to live, and grow and be together as a family. And so I just want to remind you that first and foremost, your calling to motherhood and to being a stay-at-home mom is a biblical one. And you should not feel the need to defend it in any other way, even to yourself, other than this is what I'm called to be according to the Bible, according to the Lord. Biblically, I'm called to be a stay-at-home mom. So, and then secondly, I will just say that from babyhood on to, I mean, right now my oldest is 4, so I'm just starting to get into the little out of toddler and into little kid area of life, and then I have a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. So, but none of your days are ever going to go as planned.
Oh, definitely. No matter what age and stage your children are. And I can say, my oldest of 7 is 30 and has 5 children of her own. But like I've said before on the podcast, my house is like a giant revolving door. So my kids are coming constantly to either use the washer or eat food or ask for advice. And they assume mom is just sitting in a chair waiting for them to come home. So no matter what age and stage of life you're in, it's never going... There's going to be a moment here and there that you feel like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. But then that moment ends.
Yes, it ends very quickly when somebody spills their water or dips their fingers in your coffee or spills your coffee.
Or runs and falls or, any number of things. Right. And I think that what Amerey is saying is so true, and it's not culturally acceptable anymore to be a stay-at-home mom. I was in a Bible study class last week, and it was only the second session of it, and one of the things that we women did was go around and introduce ourselves. And most of the women said, hi, my name's this, and this is what I do. I'm a nurse, or I work in this office, or I do this. And I noticed that the 2 or 3 stay-at-home moms in this huge class of probably 35, 40 people said what they did very quietly, as if it didn't matter, very meekly said, oh, I just stay at home. And that makes me very sad, because motherhood is a God-sized dream. And we mothers have the job of educating and training and fashioning young minds and character and godly devotion, so that the next generation has some solid shoulders to stand on.
Right.
And that's very discounted. And this idea that we get even from commercials that moms are just making peanut butter sandwiches, which is something we do.
Do that.
Or just hand out snacks, but as if we're just wiping things up with paper towels, that's all we do, and then turn on the TV. That's not a real picture of motherhood. Like Amerey was saying, part of the God-sized dream of motherhood is making your home a place where people feel welcome and peaceful, and your children can make mistakes and recover from them and learn while they're doing those things, and where everybody feels loved and accepted and secure, so that when they do go out into the world, they are confident in who they are and what they want to do with their life.
Right. And also, yes, and the a lot of the things the obstacles that you face in motherhood are, like we said, like your day not going as planned, like when you set out lunch and you have everything ready for lunch, and you call your kids to the table, and the first one comes and knocks over his drink, and it goes over everybody's plate, and then lunch is ruined, or you have soggy sandwiches, or when your other kids get up at the table and they're like, I'm not eating this now because it's all wet. And then you're just like so distraught and downhearted because you just put your time into this, and you were thinking of your children, and you're thinking of providing for them, and you're thinking of, like, okay, lunch is here, it's done, it's ready, it's finally made, and then it gets ruined, and now you have to scramble to either make new sandwiches or find something else that they'll eat, and clean up the water and everything. And in those moments, those are the really hard moments of motherhood. I mean, there are other really, really hard ones too, but that's just an example of one.
Right, and that's an example where it's your attitude that you have to maintain. And I will just add a little true story here. One night for dinner, with all 7 of my kids still at home and still young, they thought that they were mature enough that I should set up a buffet for dinner, and we were having spaghetti.
No.
And not only were we having spaghetti, but a friend of mine had just gifted me some new Tupperware plates. And those little Tupperware plates were slippery.
I love those.
We love those plates. They were chartreuse green, just my favorite color. But so each child came over, and I loaded up their plates with spaghetti at our little buffet. 4 plates of spaghetti. on the floor, because walking over to the table, the kids started talking to each other
and
flinging, just turning really quickly, and here's a spaghetti flying.
I do not remember this.
Flying off of their plates because they were so slippery. So Mom, decides to go over there and start cleaning up the spaghetti and rescue them. And I set my plate down on the table. I thought I missed the table completely. So my whole plate of spaghetti went on the floor too, with all the So we had like 5 pounds of spaghetti on the floor, with sauce and everything, which I had to scrape up.
You probably felt very frustrated and snapped at a few of us.
Yeah, I felt very frustrated. But
let me say this, I do not remember that. So even though Mom was frustrated and maybe had a bad mom moment, that is not my memory.
Right, and that's the thing. I did have a bad mom moment for a minute, and then I just started laughing because after I snapped at a couple of how could you do that? And then dropped my own spaghetti on the floor. Then I just started laughing because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where you go. And you have to very quickly apologize to your children. Say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And because, of course, the kids noticed that Mom, too, dropped her spaghetti on the floor.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to admit that you made a mistake and say you're sorry and then move on.
Right.
And anytime you can turn that situation back to a happy, joyful time as quickly as possible, that's the best thing to do. I know it takes everything within us.
Yes.
And all of the Jesus we can muster at that moment.
Yeah, I was actually telling Carly this morning in a message that and this was not about Carly. This was about her child. And my child.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not criticizing Carly for whining, but I was telling her that I often remind Cecilia, my oldest, that the Lord does not call us to be whiny. I have to remind her of this often, that the Lord calls us to be joyful. And then when I remind her of this, I am often very convicted because I'm usually telling her that. You need to be more, you need to stop whining, you need to be more joyful. But often she is mimicking my whining. She is I'm having a bad moment and being really upset and frustrated with her and kind of snapping at her and being oh, Cecilia, why did you do that? Why did you just bring all of the pinto beans back here and dump them on the floor? Why? And she is just looking at me and talking to me the same way. And I am sitting there and reminding her you need to stop whining. You need to be more joyful. You need to, that is such a thing, something that we need as moms to remind ourselves, is that the whining, even though in the hard moments, it's not going to help you. It's not going to get you anywhere. And it is going to take a lot of effort as a mom to turn dumped beans and dumped spaghetti into something joyful for yourself, not just for your kids. But it's something that you should be striving to do and striving to just try and make that a better moment, a happy memory.
Right, because often we are the obstacle.
Yes.
Our attitude is the obstacle. And we have to remember that our children are mirroring whatever we do, because that's what they're supposed to do. We are teaching and training them. And yes, we are going to have bad moments and we are going to need to apologize. But the research shows that children actually learn more from a redo after a mistake than they do with just doing it perfectly right or not being corrected at all.
Right.
And so we can correct ourselves and say, you know what, I really messed up. I shouldn't have been so upset about the beans. They're just beans.
Yes.
And then the kids will learn from that and they will begin to mirror that. So don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be listening and thinking, okay, these ladies have it all together and they're just going to tell us how to do it. No, we do not have it all together, and we're not telling you how to do it.
No,
you let the Holy Spirit guide you. We're just sharing some of our stories and some of the things that we've learned.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm going to read you is out of Holly Gerth's "You're Made for a God-Sized Dream." What starts out as a creative adventure full of freedom can quickly narrow down to worry about details, intricate plans, and what we think we must control. And I find that with motherhood, we have this sparkly vision of what we're going to do. We're going to be up at 5:30 in the morning and have our shower and put our makeup on, and we're going to look perfect, and our houses are going to look like all of those wonderful ladies we follow on Instagram that have design accounts, and we're like, yes, we're going to look.
Always looks good in the background.
Right. Even when they're in their sweats, their houses look good.
Yeah.
And so we get this picture in our mind of how it's going to be and how we're going to handle it and what we're going to do with our day. And that often is not what happens.
Right.
Because God-sized dreams are not controllable, and we can't be in control of all the circumstances. And the one thing that we have to remember about our children is God is not going to take away their free will just because we ask them to do something. They are still going to walk out what they think they should do. And yes, we have to give them consequences, but that's not any reason to say, well, I quit.
Right.
I don't want this mothering dream anymore.
Right. Remember that you are not a bad mom just because you have a couple bad mom moments, or a whole week of bad mom moments, or a whole 2 week of bad mom moments, and you're sitting there and thinking to yourself, I'm ruining my children. I should not be doing this. I should be letting somebody else handle this. I'm a bad mom. What I would encourage you to do in that situation is to message another one or get together with another one of your mom friends. Isolation is the hardest and worst thing you can do in motherhood. The best thing you can do is to surround yourself with other mothers that are other good stay-at-home moms that are also striving to please the Lord and striving to raise their children the right way. And do not be intimidated to make those kind of friends and think, I don't want to be friends with these people because then I'm just going to feel shame and I'm going to feel like I'm not measuring up to them. You should feel that you should surround yourself with those people so that you can call. I have a friend that I message her and I'm like, I am just having the worst day, and I tell her everything that I did wrong and everything that the girls were doing that has frustrated me, and she messages me right back, and sometimes, yes, it's encouragement, but sometimes it's just, like, I'm right there with you. My girls are doing this, and I acted like this to them, and I did this, and then they did this, and I'm having a bad day too. Like, motherhood is something, I know this is such a cliche, but you are down in the trenches together, and you should remember that, and you should be going to your other moms and be going to your close friends or women who who have already, moms who are empty nesters, and be talking to them about these things and be encouraged by the fact that you are not alone in this.
Right, and I'll add this to what Amerey said. If you find that all of your friends are doing different things with their lives, maybe choosing the career path, or they're single and they're not even settling down yet, and you feel isolated and frustrated because your friends are going out to lunch and going shopping and doing a lot of things that you don't have a lot of time to practice anymore, then you do need to find yourself some new friends.
It doesn't mean you dump your old friends. It just means
you add new friends, and that you spend a more limited amount of time with those single friends or those friends that are pursuing different God-sized dreams. And that's one of the reasons we started the Whole House Coffee Live that we have at my house once a month, and we invite moms with young children, and we pick a topic and we do a craft with the kids. That way you don't feel so alone. You don't feel so isolated because you hear those words that help you through, which are just, oh, you? Me too.
Yes.
That's happening to me too, or I'm struggling with that too. Because one of the obstacles...
I'll get that. That's our oven timer.
That's why I was coming to ask where the pot holders are.
Oh,
this is a really real life podcast here. We have an apple pie in the oven.
I'll get it.
And it is beeping because it is done. Cecilia and I made it. And it's going to be awesome. But one of the obstacles to motherhood, especially in this present culture, the stay-at-home mom, is isolation. Because it's not as culturally accepted as it was 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
And because even in my generation, like I said, my oldest is 30 and my youngest just turned 19. In my generation, that's when women were just going to work left and right. And a lot of my friends, when their kids hit school age, 4 or 5, then they went back to work. And I was kind of the odd woman out because I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm choosing to stay home with my children. And then I even took it one more weird step farther and said,
I'm going to homeschool.
I'm going to homeschool. And then I took it one step farther and said, not only am I going to homeschool, but now I'm going to adopt a sibling group of 4 and keep homeschooling them. So I was odd man out twice removed by then. But I can say on the other side of that, with my kids, some of them adulting and some of them practicing adulting, that I'm glad I did what I did because I was able to teach them skills and they have a close relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So, throwing a stink bug away.
Yes, we are just living real life here,
This is real life here. I didn't want to sit on the stink bug on Amerey's nice leather sofa here. He would have been...
Well, you wouldn't have smelled it. But we would have.
Okay, so I was just going to bring up an example. I'm going to tell you like at home life and then maybe in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So let's say, like Amerey gave the lunch example and I gave you the spaghetti example. Let's say one morning you get up and you say, hey, we're going to have a cookie day. We're going to make cookies. We're going to play games. And we're just going to, you've got it all visualized. You've got it all planned out. You got all the supplies. And you get the cookie supplies out and you already have the butter on the counter softening and you're all ready. You put on some music and you call the kids over and you start working on these cookies. And one of the first thing that happens is a child spills a whole cup of flour on the floor. Now I know for some of you OCD people like me, that's like, oh my goodness, maybe we shouldn't make cookies. Well, I learned very quickly with young children that you just let that go. Or then the next thing that happens, a child melts down because you don't have the right color sprinkles, or, you know, she didn't want to do chocolate chips. She wanted to do oatmeal or something like that. So oftentimes what happens in the realm of the home is, especially I see this with young moms, then they think, well, then I should never make cookies because it's just too hard. Nobody wants to participate. Maybe God didn't want me to do that, and they take that as a sign spiritually. Let me first of all say that is not a sign from God that you shouldn't make cookies. That is not a sign that you shouldn't be doing motherhood. Anything worth doing is going to be difficult, and you're going to have some obstacles. Mix a few little human beings in there, and you're going to have even more obstacles. So let me just put this scenario in the corporate world instead. Imagine that you are going to do a presentation for your whole office. And one of the things that you need to do is print out a report for everyone to have a copy of. And you're going to do all these graphs in color. And you go into the copy room and either the printer is broken or the printer is out of ink. Do you say, well, I can't do this report. I'm just not doing it. It must not be God's will. No, you don't say that. Or another scenario, you get it all printed, it all looks great, and then you're looking through it, and on page 3 you find 2 typos. Do you go to your boss and say, you know what, I really feel like it wasn't God's will for me to do this report because I've had so many obstacles, and I was up till midnight last night, and I thought I had it perfect, and I found 2 typos. No, you don't. You just consider these are obstacles I need to overcome, and I'm going to overcome them and do my job well and do it to the best of my ability. And that's what I'm going to do. We need to use that same approach in motherhood, whether we're teaching a child how to write their numbers, or having a cookie day, or doing laundry, or giving ourselves grace, because we often give ourselves grace in other areas, but not in that area, because we think that we should handle it all.
Yes. Yeah, we think that we should have everything under control, and if we're not, then we're failing, and we feel like we are just, like I've said before in this podcast, bad mothers, and that we're not accomplishing all of the things that we should be accomplishing. But I will remind you, whether you've listened to this this earlier podcast before or not, go back and listen to the one we talked about expectations, knowing that setting up better expectations for your day and your life as a mother. Do not set up these high expectations, these super high expectations that you as a mother are not going to be able to accomplish.
Right.
Don't be discouraged when even your low expectations, when you reevaluate and say, okay, I'm making myself have lower expectations. Don't be discouraged when those don't happen. Yesterday, I looked around. My house is just, we've been kind of in and out of the house the past couple days, and so everything is out and it's all messy and everything, and so I was like, I'm going to accomplish straightening up this house today. And I accomplished cleaning the kitchen once. What I mean by once is I cleaned it up after breakfast and it was all nice and clean. And then I did not get it cleaned after lunch. And I did not get it cleaned after dinner. And that is the only room in my house that got cleaned. That one time.
It's funny that she's saying that, because I was just telling her earlier, I feel like I don't know if any of you remember that movie, Groundhog Day, where the guy gets stuck in the same day and he's repeating it over and over and over again. And so I was telling Amerey that I felt like I was stuck in Groundhog Day because I've had several events and I've done the baking for those events. So I feel like all I was doing was putting all of the baking ware in the dishwasher or scrubbing it and then starting all over again. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of one of the things about motherhood, and especially if you practice hospitality frequently, then you're constantly, wait, I just did this, now I'm doing it again, and I'm doing it again. And that's where another thing that we need to give ourselves grace. We need to accept the work that we're doing as this is good. It's a good work. It's not going to be a perfect work. Right. And it's not always going to look perfect.
And it's a repetitive work.
Yes.
You can't, I remember a while ago, Mom was telling me she was kind of counseling someone and helping someone through with some child training. And this person kept coming to her and saying, I did what you told me. And my child is still doing this thing. And Mom said, well, you can't just do it one time and expect your child to learn. No matter how old they are. It's a repetitive thing. It's a repetitive where you are constantly telling your child while you're making those cookies, don't stick your hand in the bowl. Oh, no, I told you not to stick your hand in the bowl. Now you have egg on it. Don't put your hand in the bowl at least 20 times within 5 minutes. Right,
and you think of it as an investment. Like when you're doing maybe stocks or something like that, and you're buying stocks, you're investing in your future. Well, every time that you practice grace with yourself, or you practice grace with your children, and you work on their character, and you work on instructing them or giving them a redo, then you're investing. You're investing in their future, and it will pay off in the long run, because the Bible says to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Right. Now, old doesn't mean 12. In fact,
old doesn't even mean 19.
Yeah, sometimes old is 30 or 40, and that's okay. And we shouldn't expect ourselves to be perfect, and we shouldn't expect our children to be perfect, because every time, if you think of it this way, every time that your child misbehaves, you are given an opportunity to connect and correct, or correct and connect, whichever way you want to think about it. But you're given an opportunity to mold them and to help them along the way, in a good way. Instead of seeing those behaviors as an obstacle, which sometimes they are, especially if you're trying to get out the door or get dinner on the table and you get frustrated, which is completely normal to get frustrated, but we start retraining ourselves in our mindset and thinking, okay, this is an opportunity, not an obstacle. So we've talked about lots of different obstacles in motherhood. I know there's the cultural one. That's probably the biggest. So make sure that you try to find some friends who are doing the same thing that you're doing, and who will listen to you and not point you in a negative direction. If you find a friend who says, if you say, I'm having a hard time with this child, and they just complain with you, then you might want to find another friend who's going to encourage you and say, oh, me too, and this is what I tried. And what are some of the other obstacles we've talked about?
We've talked about the obstacles in your home with your children personally, with things your day not going as you planned it, or an activity not going as you planned. And for that, we said to just what Kathleen just wrapped it up and said, that think of them not as obstacles but as opportunities. Reevaluate your expectations, and we talked about also just not feeling like you should give up on motherhood or count yourself as a bad mother just because you have bad mom moments, whether they be one or 100 of them,
or 5 plates of spaghetti on the floor and mom having a reaction.
Right. You are a good mom. You are a human. You are a fallen human because of Adam and Eve. But the good news is that through Christ and the cross, we have grace to go each day. And I'm talking to a baby while I tell you this. And to go each day and start over and take each moment and know that just as we forgive our children for dumping out the beans, that God forgives us for snapping at our children. And it does not mean that you're a bad mom.
Right. And one of the other obstacles we talked about was just the images we see on social media.
Yes.
Sometimes when we are stay-at-home moms, we feel like our home should be perfectly designed and perfectly decorated and perfectly cleaned up and put away all the time, because those are the images that flit across our screens. And that's just not reality. And the thing is, when you stay at home, you are living in your home and not just decorating your home. Often when you're working outside of the home, there's no one at home during the day to mess it up. But when you're there with multiple children, like I was with 7 children, then it's just as soon as one room is straightened up, then another room is unstraightened at the same time. So we can't have that obstacle of image. And I'm not saying don't decorate or don't do projects
don't strive to clean your house.
Right, or don't strive to clean your house, because all of those things are extremely important. But don't make those your little g God. Because if you do, then you'll always be frustrated with your children. I had one child who was assured and confident that I cleaned the family room for him so he could bring in the Legos. As soon as I got it dusted and vacuumed and everything clean, he would bring in a giant...
He probably was sitting there thinking, oh good, Mom's...
Yeah, Mom's picking up all the toys and vacuuming so I can bring my giant bin of Legos in and dump it on the ground. And then he would dump it on the floor and just sit there and play with his Legos for hours, like I had done that for him. And the first time that he did that, I thought, what is he doing? Doesn't he understand? I just cleaned this whole room. No, he was taking that as, oh, thanks, Mom, you cleaned the room for me. So we, and we all have those moments of frustration, like Amerey said, and sometimes the obstacle is us and our attitude, and we have to be careful about that.
Yes.
So we've given you a lot of food for thought today, and I probably haven't even summed up all the obstacles we talked about because there are so many. But let me just encourage you. If you have decided to be a stay-at-home mom, then don't be so hard on yourself.
Yes.
All of those things that we talked about, the obstacles and making mistakes, and give yourself grace. Find yourself some friends who are like-minded. And surround yourself with encouraging material. Find some podcasts to listen to like this one, and find some other ones. Find some blogs to follow that have encouraging words for stay-at-home moms. And take your job seriously. It is a God-sized dream, which means you're going to need God to complete it. You can't complete it on your own. And you can have those moments and swells of joy immediately followed by despair and frustration, and that's completely normal.
Yeah.
Don't think that you're not doing the right thing just because you have those moments. It's okay. Do you want to say any final words here?
I don't think so, other than go eat a piece of chocolate and drink a cup of coffee.
I like that.
and just remember to relax, that you are not the only mom out there feeling like you're messing up. And you're not messing up. You're just a human.
That's right. We're just a bunch of human beings.
Yes.
That's from a book.
Yeah.
Bud Not Buddy, if you haven't read that. He calls us human beings.
Yes. So have a good rest of the day or night. And thank you for tuning in to The Whole House.
Thank you.